Let's at this point, Rajdeep, move beyond political parties and some of their top leadership and talk about issues that affect the country. In the last 10 years, many people would say India has become a country where Muslims are looked down upon and often treated as second class citizens. Savleen Singh, in a column that she wrote recently, says people sit in Delhi drawing rooms and discuss how much they hate Muslims. Do you share that concern?
I think any right-thinking Indian Karan would share that concern. Any Indian who believes in constitutional values of equal citizenship would share that concern. There is little doubt, Karan, that what we've seen in the last decade is both a worrying invisibilization of the Indian Muslim and even more worrying, along with that, a demonization of the Muslim. So, at one level, when you invisibilize, you mean you have a government which doesn't have a single Muslim MP in the Lok Sabha. This is not just true of 19 to 24, but even 2024. Imagine in 2019, more than 300 MPs of the ruling party, not a single Muslim. Now it's 240, not a single Muslim MP. So there's an invisibilization taking place of Muslims, and this has affected even the so-called secular parties. For example, in Maharashtra, in the Lok Sabha election, the Congress was reluctant to give a single Muslim a ticket. So no Muslim got a ticket because you thought in any constituency where a Muslim is pitted against a Hindu and there's a large Hindu population, the Muslim can't win. Now, that was not true 30, 40 years ago, and Arif Muhammad Khan could win from a Barech in Uttar Pradesh. That doesn't happen any longer. So there's that problem. But there's the other problem of the demonization. This constant attempt to project the Muslim as the enemy, to almost hold the Indian Muslim responsible for what happened 300, 400 years ago, this Babar ki aulad politics. And it's amplified, Karan, because of the role, that pernicious role, toxic role that social media plays, that this WhatsApp factories play. And it's reached the point where if I was an Indian Muslim, Karan, I would really think twice, what is my place in Indian society? And this is polite Indian society. At times, people say things now in public which earlier they might have said behind closed doors. I mean, it's almost as if you're holding the Indian Muslim to some higher standard of patriotism constantly because of his or her religion. And I think the role the media has played, Karan, is particularly, for me, after 35 years, 36 years, you've been there longer, is particularly disturbing. When I see the kind of headlines or the kind of debates that take place, so-called debates, I mean, it's designed to push the Indian Muslim constantly into a corner as if he or she is constantly on test. And Karan, you recall last year a railway police constable went around a train identifying people who look like Muslims and then shooting at them. And when he was asked, why are you doing it? अरे हमने मीडिया में देखा है कि वो सब तो पाकिस्तानी है. I mean, just think about this. What have we done? And that, to my mind, Karan, I think is for me deeply troubling, that we haven't been able to arrest this slide of into this dark abyss that leaders talk about. The kind of slogans that we hear at times are designed, batenge to katenge. It's not really about unifying India. It's about unifying a particular section of Indians by holding the other group as the enemy within. And it doesn't, of course, some of the Indian Muslim leaders in this country have not helped their cause by some of the statements they made. I saw before the Maharashtra election some Muslim clerics saying that those who vote for Modi should be socially boycotted. Those Muslims who vote for Modi should be socially boycotted. All of that sort of stokes the fears and anxieties from the other community. But net, Karan, there are people, there are people who these walls of hatred. I mean, how are we going to break? India was not meant to be, I'm sorry to get emotional, India was not meant to be Pakistan, right? Our freedom project, and we're going to reach 75 years of the Republic in a month from now, was meant to be about equal citizenship. Every Indian, irrespective of religion. That was what the Ambedkarite dream was. That was what the Nehruvian dream was. It's being, before our eyes, being dismantled by this belief of a majoritarian India. And I shudder to think what would happen if there's no pushback on that. And that's where I believe the pushback must come, if not from politicians, then from civil society and from the media.
Let me push this point one step further. These days, and you know this as well as I do, incidents of bulldozer justice, accusations of love jihad, cattle lynching, or just hate speech targeted at minorities are commonplace. You can count 3, 4 instances happening practically every single day. They trouble people like you and me. Do they trouble the majority of our countrymen the same way?
Uh, Karan, I don't know whether they do anymore. I think most Indians today, if you say democracy khatre mein hai, they will laugh you off because they believe at the end of the day we are a country which is growing at 5.4% now, but we are among the fastest growing economy in the world. One of the things that has changed also is delivery of goods and services. I didn't mention this in my first answer, but I think there is one reason why Mr. Modi has been so successful over such a long period of time. A friend of mine called it the Hind factor. That's Hindutva, infrastructure, nationalism, and delivery. Delivery of goods and services in the digital age. And Mr. Modi has pushed that, and you've got to give him credit for that, has evangelized that, has meant that a number of Indians feel that so long as I get my delivery of goods and services, democracy, which is an intangible, or constitutional values, which are an intangible, don't matter. What really matters is, am I getting the delivery of services that are promised? Now, that could include the 1,500 rupees I get under the Ladli Bahin, or it could include a lovely coastal road that I've now got in Mumbai. So when I've got those basic services, or if I'm getting a kind of income, I don't really care about the values of democracy. And I think the general public is becoming cynical of politicians, rightly so, some would say, because when you shift sides so often, when there's, mass defections of politicians, governments are formed and broken, the public is cynical and says, Hamam mein sab nange hain. So what is this democracy that you talk about? So I think that's the problem. But I think the urban middle class, which was once idealistic, has become so cynical that and unfortunately at times even spiteful towards the otherization of groups, that they don't really care enough about the values of democracy that you just spoke about, or the values of constitutionality that we just spoke about, Karan.
Let's at this point, Rajdeep, once again broaden our discussion. Let's talk a little about the system, so to speak. Every time the opposition loses an election, they blame either electronic voting machines or the Election Commission directly. Most recently, it happened in Maharashtra. Before that, it happened in Haryana. It said the machines were rigged, or more votes were counted than people voted, or the turnout increased suspiciously after the polls officially closed. How do you view these charges that are thrown around about EVMs, about the Election Commission?
Karan, I really think that this EVM is an excuse for the inadequacy of the opposition. I mean, you ran a shambolic campaign in Maharashtra, Karan. For 3 months, the opposition kept fighting over who will be chief minister in the belief that the Lok Sabha election victory in Maharashtra would guarantee them a Vidhan Sabha election. At the same time, the BJP was working on welfare schemes like Ladki Bahin, or direct income benefit schemes like Ladki Bahin, was getting its act together, was cost correcting. And then when the results come, you blame EVMs. I need far more prima facie evidence of EVM manipulation before I say EVMs in any way are responsible for an election defeat. But Karan, I think the Election Commission of India suffers from a serious credibility deficit, because it's been so non-transparent and opaque, doesn't answer the pressing questions that are pushed before it. Then can you tell us why in 537 out of 542 Lok Sabha constituencies was there a mismatch between votes polled and votes counted? No answer. Can you tell us, for example, why do you have a 5-phase poll in Maharashtra in the general elections when there is no history in Maharashtra of violence, and you can have Tamil Nadu can go for a single phase? Can you tell us, for example, what have you done to curb money power, the single biggest menace to elections in this country? So the Election Commission doesn't answer the necessary questions. There was this talk of a surge after 5 p.m. I think there is enough empirical evidence to suggest that that can be answered. But why doesn't the commission answer it? Why doesn't the commission give us real-time data, hour by hour, 5 p.m., 6 p.m., right up to 11:30, rather than suddenly announce a percentage at 11:30? Give us absolute numbers. All of this is possible. I don't believe at this time that electronic voting machines have been manipulated or they've been changed. I need evidence of that. That at the moment, I think a lot of the politicians who are talking about this are doing it without hard evidence that they have. They sort of look at some social media video and put it out. But I think the Election Commission, Karan, like so many institutions in this country, has taken a huge credibility hit in the last decade. And unless the Election Commission is willing to address the pressing questions that people have for it, this EVM issue will continue to tangle. The VVPAT issue, should we have 100% VVPAT? Maybe we should, just for one election, have it so that people know an element of confidence is restored in the system. Why can't the Election Commission meet the opposition, all parties, before the election, after the election, immediately address all questions, settle all doubts? I think we've become, I think the credibility crisis, Karan, is what has led us into this EVM tangle. You were part of the ballot box generation. It's not as if ballot boxes always were necessarily fair. There were ballot boxes which would be stolen. But my own belief is we are going to have to, at some stage, relook at the system now, because I think the credibility crisis has reached the point where eventually you could have what happened in Bangladesh in the past, where the opposition would say we are boycotting the elections unless we are convinced they are free and fair. Indian elections, Karan, and I say this in my book, and this is a major part of the book, are not free and fair because there's no level playing field. The enforcement agencies are used against opposition chief minister or opposition leaders, and the enforcement agency won't function in BJP ruled states. The role of the media, the role of money power, all of this has led to a non-level playing field. And I think that's the issue that needs to be addressed urgently if democracy is to be strengthened.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch The Interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.